Hi, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to Soul Treats. I am Michelle Klassen. I'm in Vancouver, Canada, BC, and I have these lovely gentlemen that are on the screen with me today. And I am so excited to have them here, to have them go over their discussion today. And today is the first live of the year 2022. And I'm just so excited that it's being set off right with these two gentlemen here. They bring so much love and so much light to us all. And I hope you really enjoy this. So I am going to um, have them introduce themselves. And if you have any questions throughout this discussion, please feel free to put it in the comments. Also, let us know where you are watching from. We would really like to know where you're at. And without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to James and Zach. Thank you so much for being here, you two. Love to you both.
Appreciate that.
Thank you, Michelle. Appreciate that a lot. Thank you. I'll go first. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here today. My name is Zach Hayter, and I am a creator, a co-founder of the Foundation for Personal Growth, and a healer and a weight shower. So that's really me in a nutshell. So thank you. James, thank you for coming on today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's a pleasure to be here, and I appreciate you both for the opportunity. And I guess in the same breath, my name is James Malins, and I have called myself an ascension guide to try and sum up what it is that I do. I basically help people with all aspects of their human selves, especially around their souls and everything that they are. And I try to guide people to their truth, their purpose, their passion, and to let go of trauma, fear, and to move into self-empowerment. So yeah, I'm excited to chat with you today.
Awesome. Thank you. Cool. So the topic today that we are going to be talking about is connecting to and understanding the language of our soul so that we can find inner peace. So yeah, it was you, James, you put out a post a few weeks ago saying you really want to do some lives and like have some interviews and some interactions with people about certain topics. And there were some really good topics that you put out, such as permaculture and like connecting with the soul. And I was umming and ahhing because I really love all of those topics, but I ended up really wanting to talk to you about connecting to the soul to find peace and understanding the language of the soul. So I'd just like to ask you, what's your kind of when you first started connecting with your soul on, I suppose, in deeper ways, when was that and how was that experience for you?
I think before I answer that, the interesting thing is we might find that everything starts to link into all of those topics and ideas as we chat along. Well, who knows? We'll see where the conversation goes, but you never know. It might end up synchronizing, which is very interesting. I think for me, when it comes to communicating with my soul, it was when I started asking the right questions. Because I think for a lot of people, and this has been quite a staple point of my work, when it comes to people asking themselves questions, they very rarely do it. They may listen to another opinion or listen to an external idea, but yet rarely then question what it is that they believe about themselves, or what they believe is their own makeup, their own substance, who they are, whether it's a personality trait, etc. People don't always question those things. So for me, when I started to ask myself, why is it that things happen to me, and why shouldn't they happen to me, instead of saying why are they happening to me, well, they should. If things do happen for a reason, then I have to observe these things much deeper. And so it was that observation that really allowed me to start to listen to my soul, because my soul was trying to tell me things through my experiences, through my thoughts, through the things that were happening. And when I started to listen, that's when things started to change.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. And that brings me on to another question I have is through my own experience, I've actually found we have this idea of right, we've got the soul, which we could also say is the higher self. And to me, that really represents that connection. Usually for me comes through the heart or the heart space. But then we also have, of course, the mind and then the emotions. So how do you personally differentiate the language, I suppose, because they're all, in a sense, are kind of three different languages. At least I perceive them as three different languages. How do you discern between the differences of like the language of the soul and mind and emotion?
That's an awesome question, brother. And I think that in order to discern between the different, should we say, like voices or different things that start to listen, whether you get in your head, whether you get in your heart, or etc., it really starts to come down to understanding why we have those things. Why do we have the mind? Why does the mind have thoughts? Why do we have different sort of spaces on our body, our chakras, our heart space, our throat chakra, etc.? Like, why do we have these things? And for me, I kind of always go down the path that these are our mechanisms, although I don't want to make it too robotic and black and white like that, but they are our mechanisms of experience, right? So as we go through life, somebody might find that they go through their root chakra, their sacral chakra, solar plexus, heart, throat, third eye, and crown. And so as they explore each one of these chakras, they have soul lessons with it, right? Throat chakra. Are people speaking up? Are they speaking their truth? Are they suppressed? Do they feel like they can properly communicate? Do they feel like they can really speak their empowerment into the world without being hindered or blocked, right? And then therefore, once they open up that throat chakra, there's a different feeling that comes there, and then as we start to explore each one of our chakras, this to me is when we start to get closer to what I would consider, and again, this is my truth, but for the sake of everybody's free will, I'll say this is my belief, is that you get closer to hearing the ultimate truth, which is the soul or your soul. And I often kind of also go down the path of explaining to people the potentiality, again, it's my truth, but I don't want to impose that on people, the potentiality that we are a soul. So it's not that we particularly have one, but we are a soul. And so this whole physical body is merely a vessel of experience. Not to say it's not important or valuable. Of course it is. It's the most beautiful thing that we have in this physical reality. But to me, it is a vessel, and so it's not to take away from the wonder of the physical body, but it's to also amplify the understanding that you may be more than your physical body. And so that's where we start to, if the mind is a part of this vessel's experience, when you start to listen beyond the mind and you start to hear what I class as kind of that loving, passionate truth, and you say it yourself from the heart, that to me is when you start to listen to the soul aspect of what you are. And therefore, that to me becomes uninterrupted truth. And that's what I try to help everybody find. So not my own truth, but what theirs is communicating with themselves from their soul.
That's absolutely wonderful. Yeah, that's awesome. That's brilliant. Thank you. I will just say to everyone who's currently tuning in, we will be taking questions throughout, so feel free to leave any questions you may have in the comments, and we'll get to them if it's aligned. So yeah, that's awesome. Through my own experience of connecting to the soul and I suppose connecting more to my heart as well, and just generally even like gearing myself up to kind of practice more channeling as well. It's not something that I've really delved into too much personally as of yet along my path, because it's something that I hold myself at a very high standard to personally. That's just through my own conditioning and through my own path of observing others channeling. And I know you also do your channeling as well, which is it's brilliant. So what I'm getting at is that through what I've learned from my own teachers as well and mentors, is that when our soul, in a sense, or when our higher self is speaking to us, and this again, like you say, this is my own truth that I'm sharing now, that it's often like we could also almost also call it our intuition as well. At least that's what I would call it. Like when the heart is talking to us, when our soul, our higher self, or our intuition is talking to us. A very good analogy that I once heard is that, well, it's the subtlety. It's like a very quiet whisper. It's like a very subtle feeling. So like imagining like a crowded room. And in this crowded room, you have loads of people talking very loudly, And these people almost represent like the thoughts in our mind, or our emotions, our intense emotions bubbling up, and they can be so loud and so intense that our intuition, our soul, is like a little child in the room who's just talking, who can only just so much kind of, you can barely even, you can't really hear them when that mind or those emotions are like so loud and present around, and that little child is there, and it's just almost at a whisper. So for me, how I personally go about being able to tune into that knowing and to that more subtle understanding and the messages that can come through in that way is just to be able to really calm the mind and to feel out those emotions as well. So like let the emotions expand, and the emotional alchemical process, and just going through that and letting myself just like feel out the emotions so that they can come to a state of neutrality. And then through opening up my heart more as well, I can then also begin then to feel the more subtle messages. But it's certainly an art form, I suppose. At least I see it as an art form, because there's been times where I would listen to my intuition and I question, it's like, is that my intuition? But then also on the flip side to that, it's like it's not good to question the intuition, because what comes to you is meant for you in that sense. But there are times I found as well, it's hard to distinguish between, again, thought and intuition. But everyone's going to perceive their inner workings differently in that way as well. So, yeah. Another question.
Well, I think that you absolutely spot on with what you're mentioning there. And one of the things that really filled me with love is what you mentioned about holding yourself in a high regard when it comes to channeling. And of course, like with all things, to me, there's delicacies with everything. Like we don't want to completely put ourselves beneath the idea of channeling, to consider that the forces that may come through are better than ourselves, or more prestigious or esteemed. Because from my experience, no being that is of a true loving nature will ever come through with that kind of an energy. However, you holding yourself in that high regard, which I try to do myself, and what I mean by that is kind of like always clocking my own vibration, clocking my intentions, clocking what it is why I'm doing what I'm doing. Am I doing it for arrogance? Am I doing it because I'm James Malins and I have the, not that I ever would, but still, like, that's the point. Like, when you start to say that I'm doing this for love and I want to communicate a potential message of love to somebody who may receive it, I feel that you automatically put yourself in the vibration that's necessary to establish that connection, to feel that connection come through. And it's really amazing. And if I may, I'd like to share a little story, 60-second story.
Please.
So in regards to channeling, me and some really close brothers and sisters, we went up to the north of Scotland in a place called Dunedin Den. And I actually have the fitted photos now, and if Lucas watches this, he'll laugh, because I was pestering him for months to get those images.
Yeah, awesome.
But we went up there, and Lucas opened a space, and we all did, and we were holding a very sacred space, seeking to connect to the land. And in this connection, I started channeling. As I was channeling, they were talking about an egg, a chicken egg, and they were saying that the shell of the egg is like this physical reality. Okay, and the golden yolk of the egg is our soul moving through the reality. And so as we move through physical reality, our soul is growing and becoming the being that we are. And then eventually we will, learn what we've learned, the eggshell will crack, and we will ascend or transcend onto our next step of our journey. Well, after we'd finished channeling, I was giving my love and gratitude to the trees and the space around. And this chicken from the top of this cliff flew down and landed right in front of me. And we have the images, and I wish I could share it here, but I'm not going to.
That's amazing.
But and I was stunned. And you see, when I channel, like, I need to listen back to fully grasp everything that's been said. And Lucas was like, "Whoa!" He was like, "Do you understand the importance of this?" And I just went silent. And afterwards, and it followed us all of the way up the steps, all of the way to the car, and we've got photos all the way. And then afterwards, he said they were talking about the egg. And the reason why I'm sharing this story is because it's even mentioned in a few books that when you start to open to the universe, to Mother Earth, to nature, to the people, and to coming from love, nature will respond. Because nature is again, to me, it's like our container of purity, our container of perfection. You know, it's created for us, and in that sacred union of, ironically, here's where we kind of connect both the aspect of the soul and nature.
Yeah, yeah.
When we connect with nature, it will respond in a very real way, in a very, very real way. So I just thought it was, beautiful when you mentioned about, holding yourself in a certain, like to a certain standard, should we say, because that's beautiful to hear, because to me, you automatically qualify for opening up to channel, so.
Sure. Thank you. I appreciate that. And that story is incredible. That's like literally a chicken flying down from the cliff edge. It's almost like, those signs, as you say, nature provides these kind of signs to us just synchronistically, or just as a confirmation in some way. So what did you feel by that chicken landing in that way? Was it?
It's been like over 3 months now. I'm still stunned. Like it completely. I mean, it's not that I needed validation as such, because I didn't do it for any prestige. I just did it from love. But seeing that was like, there's some I couldn't. It was undeniable. That was all of the proof or evidence I could ever need. It was right there in front of me, and I remember it to this, like, all the tingling around my head when I saw it, and I was like, what? Like,
Yeah,
what's
sure.
happened? Like it was mental. And there's been a few other experiences, but I won't share them here. But the experiences, they start to open, and again, it's all about coming to that truth. And Lance, if it's all right, I noticed Lance popped a comment on here. Is there something more that can be done to deal with the voices that you hear in your mind? If you may, I'd like to just give a short answer to that. I think that one of the best ways you can do is to simply keep practicing that stillness, right, and acknowledging everything that comes forwards. Because when we're surrounded by screens, 9 to 5 jobs, if we've got partners, children, family members, if we have responsibilities, like that takes a lot of headspace. And so if you can find more moments to be alone and to genuinely have time by yourself, to just be with yourself, and I never ever use this usually, but I am going to say it now. I promise you that the mind will quieten, and you'll get more able to move into that space of stillness. And then when you're in that space of stillness, well, to me, you're in the right place to hear truth, which is your own truth, which will be that intuition telling you, what it is that's really important to you. So what's your thoughts, Zach?
Yeah, as you said as well, it's. I remember hearing the saying once of this Buddhist monk who said, if you're he suggested meditate for 20 minutes a day. And then he said, if you're too busy to meditate for 20 minutes a day, meditate for 2 hours a day. So that kind of thing, right? So that, just in that, it's like, I find that as well. Is sometimes I'll go into meditation and I'll be there for 10 minutes and it's like the mind is still going racing, just like the chicken flying down. It's just like going that fast and it's just flying, and it's like. But then, if I really give myself patience and time, and just through the breathing, so even using like stimulating the parasympathetic nervous system through the breathing practice of like breathing for say 4 seconds, then out breathing for 8 seconds. So for whatever you breathe in, you then breathe out double that length, and that will allow us to calm our heartbeat and can even allow the mind to very much soothe itself as well. And another suggestion that I would have in terms of being able to quieten the mind, or even to be able to tap into the subtleties of our heart and our soul in that way, there's this idea that when we're in that kind of state of consciousness, it's a certain kind of brainwave state where it's just in between waking state and non-waking state, so unconsciousness and consciousness. it's right there in between. You may, for example, if you had it before where you wake up from a sleep and you kind of just keep yourself, you don't really move at all. You're still kind of lucid in that way, and you've just come about. You've regained your consciousness, but you're not fully conscious and fully awake yet. That you kind of have this incredible perception. Have you found that before?
Yes.
And this is part of the understanding, is that when we're in that state of in between conscious and unconscious, that's when we can have the greatest amount of clarity. We just have to be very mindful of letting the mind get excited, because it can very easily kick us out of that kind of brainwave state and level of consciousness. So yeah, that's definitely what I would suggest.
It's interesting you say that too, because I was helping a friend of mine to channel recently, and he asked, and I've been on and off about 3 years now, more intensely in the past year, seeking to channel. And when asked to define what it means, or what the state of channeling is, the way I put it across is that exactly what you mentioned. It's like just before, it's in the meditative state, but just before you fall asleep, right? So when just in between that state is when you kind of my personality switches off and opens the door for another personality to come through. So yeah, just really interesting that you mentioned that. Like I would also agree, and again, that can really help with. I guess that's actually a separate topic, because that's more like how to channel. But yeah, very interesting you mentioned that when it comes to like letting go and then channeling in this conversation that we're having.
Absolutely. Oh, great, thank you. Just going back a second to what you mentioned, where I had said holding myself in a high standard or a high regard when it comes to me actually practicing channeling. Like I said, I've practiced channeling on my own a little bit before, but it's something that I am intending to get more into and consciously practice more consistently. But what I meant by holding myself to a high standard is, and thank you as well for saying that, because it's like, it's that idea of like when you're someone who is presented with something that they can do, but they're kind of apprehensive as to they don't really want to take on that responsibility.
I see. Yeah.
And that's the kind of person who is good to do that kind of thing. That's a good thing. But it's like in my own journey, it's like I've been mainly absorbing information from channeled material and channelers for several years now. And so it's like I've had sessions with channelers who are like, it's just like, yep, you just sound like Bashar, or like, yep, you just literally just sound like Bashar kind of thing. And it's all coming from your mind. And it's like, so I've had like parts of both worlds. So it's like, for me, it's like I've almost crippled myself in a sense. It's almost like putting myself off the idea of me channeling, because it's like I see these really incredible channelers that I look up to, and I'm like, I don't want to be public until I'm that good. But that's just my own perception of that. Like that's me projecting my own kind of my ideals, I suppose, upon myself based on what I've seen others doing. But yeah, just but thank you for saying that. It's good to hold yourself in a high standard, and for yourself as well. I've watched many of your channeling videos, and it's lovely to see and to feel what you're bringing through. And I feel it's very genuine, and it's definitely coming from the heart. And it's just, for me, I know I can tell as well when someone is bringing in this kind of bringing in the light, and it's just an alignment with what for me personally. So. Yeah.
And just real quick, because I really appreciate you saying that, and it's humbling. And you see, the interesting thing is you have a vibrational signature very similar to one of my close friends, a very loving signature, very humble, very seeking to come from a place of being of service to others. And just, because this is just from my heart to you, it's interesting when you mention about being in sort of holding yourself to a high standard. Perhaps there is no standard. Perhaps the only standard is the intention that you have in your heart. And I think that you're already there. Of course, I mean, that's just my opinion, but I can feel it from you. And the fact that you're seeking to make sure that you are connecting to energies that are of your own same intentions. And so I think that that's all you need. If you make that your intention, and because and you'll know in your heart what is the same. Because I've even years ago when I first tried to connect with guides, I could feel the energy, and I said no, and I turned them away. And it was only when I met my first ever guide, Marcus, when I then just went quiet and I sat with him, and he walked with me for a very long time. So yeah, just wanted to say that I feel from your energy you're already there. You've got good intentions, and that's the main thing.
Thank you. Wow. So with Marcus, how and this kind of translates, I suppose, to the topic of today of like understanding the language of the soul, because it's, I suppose, in a sense, it's Marcus would, if he, as a guide, uh, is going to essentially have his own soul, and then you of course have your own soul. It, and of course, every soul has its own vibrational signature, right? So how, and you can't really fake a vibration either. So when connecting with Marcus, is it a case of like, how do you know it's Marcus?
Great question. When connected with Marcus, is for me personally, it's because I can see him. So I can see him, and there is this undeniable knowing that it's him. And ironically, with Marcus, he would never say anything. It was merely a form of telepathy, perhaps a form of simply communicating from just thought and images from myself to him. And he was always within my mind through meditation. He was sat in front of me. Sakura came later. She was on the left. For him, he was really, ironically, through his silence and through that interaction of just simply feeling what it is that he had to share, that allowed me to differentiate the difference. And for me personally, I know what's my higher self, should we say. Mm. I am going to share this through even with the fear of sounding arrogant. With myself, years ago, I could feel the difference between my higher self perhaps and me. I feel like as we've got closer into these years, I feel like they have both merged. So who I am here now is who I feel that my higher self is. This is interesting.
Yeah, I appreciate exactly what you're saying, and I totally understand. It's like it's almost like the energetics that are coming upon the planet. It's almost forcing us as our physical selves to essentially merge more. And it's also the idea that just the knowing of like when you know who you are, and we have all of these kind of understandings that we learn like externally, and we study all of these different things, but through the totality of all of that and within our own hearts as well, I can imagine for you it's like, and for myself as well, because I feel very, very similar. It's like you just come into a point of oneness almost, and you become one with all that is, even beyond the higher self. And I do feel that collectively, especially in the past few years, that's become more of a theme for myself and for yourself as well. So I appreciate your humbleness in that regards, in regards to the arrogance, but I totally understand, and I see that in myself as well too, in many ways.
And I appreciate, because you kind of like really helped me out there, because I did not want to come across as arrogant. And I think I'd like to also elaborate it as in this way. It's kind of for me when I was a teenager, and I'm gonna separate emotions into like entities. Although they aren't separate from us, yes, we experience them, they're a part of us. But at the same time, in this moment, I'd like to separate ourselves from them just in this moment. In regards to our emotions like anger, jealousy, rage, etc., like for me, I was trying to latch on to those entities as an identification. And so whilst my higher self or my true self wasn't in me. And so when I let go of those entities and I realized that they served a purpose, but I no longer needed them, that's when I felt that there became a very thin line between what I could feel was my higher self and actually who I am now. And so I believe who I am now is a merger of all that was always good in me, and everything that perhaps didn't seek to come from a good, loving place then fell away. And so what was left was somebody who just genuinely wanted to help in whatever way he could and not try to deify myself in any way at the same time, because that's never what it's been about for me. So I couldn't be less concerned with who I am as a person as long as it helps. Like
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. No, I love that. Thank you. Yeah. Oh, we have a question from Michelle. Do you feel we should allow others to tell us who our guides are?
Would you like to go first, brother?
Yeah, okay. That's an interesting one. I feel when we almost give permission to, for example, a psychic or a channeler in that moment, if we give that permission, whether consciously or not, and that's where it gets a bit murky, right? Because if the ego is giving permission, that's one aspect. But then if, as we say, our higher self is also communicating in that moment with the being who's being channeled through the external conduit, that's also a form of permission. So I would say yes. And if you're actually it's difficult, isn't it? It's difficult because there's two aspects to this. Because of course you have the idea of free will, and we don't want to infringe on others' free will. So like and this comes back to the idea of like holding oneself, like being almost a channeling snob, and like I would only listen to that person personally because I trust what they have to say through my own experience. But then that person over there, like, oh, I don't know, based on what they've put out and what they've relayed to me, I feel like they're more just coming from their mind and their ego and not really channeling. So it's very subjective. I would say there's times when yes, it is okay, and times when no. But really, ultimately, everything we hear is for a reason. But at the same time, listening to our heart when we receive that information and getting away from that emotion, getting away from that mental chatter, and just going into the heart and listening very intently for that subtle message, if there is one. So, yeah, that's a difficult one. So, what's your take?
My take is simply moving, and you said it perfectly yourself, free will. And no matter what I've done with anything, whether it's, working with people on, one-on-one, etc., one of the first things I always seek to do is honor someone's free will. So what I've connected, ironically, I've done a lot of sessions to connect people with their guides, but through the process, I show them how to do it. So even if it's that kind of 60 to 90 minute session, like it's not me trying to sorry, did you?
Sorry, no, yeah, I've got. I know, yeah, you carry on.
No, it's okay.
I was gonna, yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, it's exactly what you just did, because my mentor did the same for me as well. It's kind of guiding me through, just like with my hands on my heart, and he asked me, so what is the name of this guide that is coming through now, and letting me come up with it, because the channeler or the psychic, their filter or whatever their vocabularize in that way may be different to what I would vocabularize that energy as. So just wanted to add that. And
yeah, no, and you're totally right, and I think that is it's the one way to stay in self-empowerment, and to guide somebody to continue to be self-empowered, because there is that kind of trap of, oh, I keep going to this person because they're doing this and this. And I did have somebody who I was working with, and it's so interesting, to the detriment of my own, should we say 3D success, I kept trying to impose upon them that I am not the channel for their higher self, they are. So it's not me that's providing you with the messages of what your truth is telling you. I want to show you how to connect yourself, because as you mentioned, it's not down to me I can tell people what I see, and I have done many times. I can say, like I have perceived this, but through the session we get to a certain point and then we almost gently break off. and they go through a certain door, they experience what they have to, I will stay where I am and I will connect and see what I see. I'll write it down. And only when I've asked them what they experienced and who they may have seen or connected with will I then share my thoughts, which is quite interesting over the months, really exciting through that. But yeah, it's an excellent question. I think that it's not about anybody telling them who their guides are. It's simply about potentially guiding them to meet who it is that is supposed to meet them, and it has to feel right for them, in my opinion anyway.
That's brilliant. Yeah. I mean, thank you as well. Well, it's not really my place to say thank you for doing that, but I just honor that you're doing that. I think that's a brilliant way to conduct your session. So yeah, thank you. So yeah, brilliant. I did have one more part that I wanted to suggest, and that was,
I love what Ada said as well. It was really beautiful, her comment.
The more we know who we are, our vibrations rise to new levels. So then we start to operate in those new levels. Yeah, totally. Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree.
It's wonderful. Thank you, Crystal, as well. Yeah, I love that part of it. It's different and fun. So I had another question here. So when you channel beings, do you go through a process of, how should I say? Yeah. Do you go through a process to ensure that you're connecting with who you want to connect with, rather than potentially some kind of possibly malevolent being, or not saying that you connect with any malevolent beings?
It's important to say it. Again, that's a part of keeping ourselves in check, and it's another really fantastic question. And it's so interesting because I don't often have to, because I keep these kind of things within my inner circle often, we kind of share it amongst ourselves. But yeah, it's the process. It was much longer than what it is now. Almost now I can do it instantaneous. Usually I do quite an intense, set of breathing, which was interesting what you mentioned earlier. For the ACE, the sympathetic nervous system. That's also something I do. It's very good for just bringing that stillness and that calm energy into myself. Whenever I connect, I've got to a point now where I know and I trust, and that's quite important actually. And okay, I'm going to say it as it is in this bit. For me, I know, and I know who it is that I'm channeling. I have had experiences where I've almost channeled somebody new, and we recorded this as well. I'm so glad that we recorded them. Not that we need evidence, but it's good to have those things. I was channeling just with a private friend of mine, and through the channeling, I could feel that there was a new energy come forwards, and I had this insane experience where it was almost like I got booted out the way. This really powerful consciousness came forward and basically said no, and they stopped what was being channeled before and went on an entirely new tangent. And coming out of it, I could really feel that whoever I was connecting with was no good. And that's there's only one time I've ever experienced that in my life, and it's never happened since, which is very, very fascinating. But yeah, most of the time, whenever I've connected to channel, it's like family. It's like there is no question about it. And whenever who I have channeled, they've always, and again, most of them I've done privately, they refer to themselves simply as the light. And they always say that they are us and that there's no separation, and that their path with what we were discussing amongst our inner circle was to help us to reach that understanding that they have, and to try to at least share that with us so that we can get to that point whilst always honoring our free will. That's their most important. Hey, Kev. That's good to see you, bro. That's their number one agenda, is to again remember that they are us and we are them, and so they're trying to connect in that really deep space of love. So
it's interesting you say that they are us and we are them, and I wonder, maybe the first thing that popped in my mind is a belief, but maybe future versions of ourselves, maybe even a million years in the linear future. So can happen. So
Yeah.
wow, thank you for sharing that. That's amazing. Yeah, the idea where you actually almost you felt and you could sense that idea of some kind of being coming in and kind of booting your consciousness or the other consciousness you were channeling out of the way,
Yeah.
and then started coming through, and then you were like, right, no, like this is weird, and you caught it. So that's good on you. I suppose especially that what I suggested there is the idea of going through a process to know who and what you're connecting with is especially important for those who are new to their channeling journeys. So they, as I said before, like you can't fake a vibration, so you know when you're connecting to what you're connecting to, and it's familiar to you. But someone new to that process, it's very important for them to go through that process. Like for me personally, I would always suggest that to people. So yeah. So those were the main points that I'd written down. So yeah. Well, is there a particular, if there was one thing that you could suggest to people here today as to how they could, in regards to connecting to and understanding the language of your soul to find peace, how would you do this in a way to find peace?
Another fantastic question. And you know what? It leads me to this very simple, very easy idea. And that is sitting down in this very moment and asking yourself what you see for your life. You know, each component, every minute detail, every little facet of your life, what do you see in it? Do you see freedom? Do you see love? Do you see the ability to do whatever it is that you want to do whenever it is you want to do it? Or are you limited? Do you work at a 9 to 5? Are you, bound by bills? Are you bound by having to go to the supermarket? And the reason why I say this is because I believe, and it's my deepest focus and passion and purpose at the minute, is to help people return back to nature. And that's a completely different topic because we're currently just exploring that at the minute. But the reason why I share it is because if we think of ourselves as human beings, we are, in my opinion, designed to be free. To be free to explore our consciousness, to explore what it means to love, to explore what it means to connect with one another and live in harmony and, as you mentioned, in peace with not only ourselves, but our brothers and sisters and nature as a whole. So I think now, especially in 2022, it's time to start asking ourselves, how free do we feel? And to me, like, my objective, not just for myself, but for everybody around me and everybody who I hope to work with in the future, is to help them to get to a point where they have their own garden that supplies their food, their water, their fuel, their shelter, their medicine, their energy, everything. So that there isn't a single bill that comes out of their bank account, because they don't even need a bank account anymore, because literally in their backyard there is everything that they could possibly desire, because that's what we're supposed to have. Is, in my opinion, as souls, as people, that is what we were supposed to have, is everything that's in our backyard. And if you don't have a backyard, then let's find one and let's make it happen. And so to me, it's looking at communities as well, and opening that door. So why did I share that? Because everything that I mentioned,
Sorry, you carry on. Sorry,
no, it's good. I'll do this last bit and I'd love your thoughts. To me, like, everything I've just mentioned is what's going to give that ultimate ability to have peace with the self and the soul. And so as we open that doorway, and as that becomes the reality for everybody, not one where we go into a digital world, although if that's people's choice, that's totally fine, but one where we really go out into the purity of who and what we are, based upon people's choices. Again, like, to honor everybody, they'll decide what's right for them, and that's totally fine. But I think for a lot of people, if you do feel trapped in any way, shape, or form, you can set yourself free by asking this question. And remember, we are limitless, and we have the ability to do whatever it is that we want to do whenever we want to do it. We are designed by that by definition. Whether it's religion, whether it's belief, whatever, every single religion talks about the mirror, right? We are a reflection of the energy of a creator or a essence or a universal idea. And if we are a reflection of that, then therefore, by definition, we have to be that vibration and energy. And if we are, surely we are limitless. Surely we have no blocks, nothing that can stop us from being pure creators. So yeah, that's just my thoughts on that.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you for that share. That's absolutely, I can see that as well. I had this very, as you were saying that, and you even mentioned going down the digital path as well, I kind of imagined these two crossroads of like, the first one was you were in your garden, you were kind of like looking up and like, yeah, just feeling amazing, and everything you had, you needed was there. And you were surrounded by others as well. And it was just a beautiful sight. And then I also had this picture as well. I mean, this is a program picture from what I've learned in my past, but this other avenue of where other people will go. I'm not judging anybody at all along their path, nonetheless. So, but this idea that someone's just sat there in this transhumanistic state where they're literally almost plugged in like the Matrix in the back of the head to the digitalized version of the astral realm, whereas you would be there kind of channeling and almost beginning more and more to turn into that version of yourself which is part flesh and part light, where you are living in the astral realm as your experience as a human of earth. And it's just an amazing contrast, and it filled me up, it filled my heart up with joy at the idea of just here in England, because for me personally, my experience of our homeland here is that it doesn't feel like there's that many people awake, even though I know there's many people who are awake here. I love that idea of a community here, of that, even though it's cold and it's blighty cold sometimes, which puts me off the idea of it, but it's still an amazing thing. So I really look forward to seeing what you're going to create over the coming decades, in terms of that kind of communal idea, because it's that idea, like people, for example, who are in the cities right now, who live in apartments where they cannot really have that kind of garden space. Whereas there's so much land we have around us that if we can come together on these lands and grow these organic foods and live sustainably in that way, and combining even with certain elements of free energy technology and things like that can empower us to have everything that we need. There's a lot of people, lots of us here, so absolutely, yeah. So it's good. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what we all create here in this magical land, because England is a very magical place.
It is.
So
yeah.
So wow. Thank you.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you, and you used the perfect word. England is a magical place. There is magic here, truly. And it might not be. I'm going to say a very limiting thing here, but I'm going to say it anyway. It might not be with wands and potions, etc. Although it can be. I have plenty of potions behind me.
Awesome. Yeah.
But in England, magic is consciousness. Magic is the connection, the unseen connection with nature, the unseen connection with all that is around us. And you said it beautifully. People are going to make their decision, and that is their sovereign right to do so. I will say this though: I do believe in my deepest heart that nature and who we are as ourselves, without any augmentation, without any change, we are perfect. We are pure in our essence, and our minds, our souls, our abilities, ourselves as souls, we are infinite. There is no computer that can match the power, the possibility that we have in ourselves. So that's just from my heart to anybody with what they're considering about themselves, because it really is, it takes understanding your value. It takes understanding that we are incredible, and it's not arrogance. It's not arrogance to understand that you are an emanation of pure love, that your potential is limitless. That's not arrogance. That's just understanding what you are. What you choose to do with that is up to you. But we are boundless, and so therefore you're perfect already. That's all that matters.
It's wonderful. Yeah, absolutely. And even the perfection of going down the transhumanistic route, which even in itself is perfect in its own right. So it's a choice and it's an experience. So and it is creation experiencing itself in all the different facets that it chooses to. So
yeah, I agree.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, we're now coming up to 5 minutes to the hour. So is there anyone watching who has any questions for us both as we count down to the conclusion of this sharing today? I will just say as well, thank you for this as well. It's I've been following your content for quite a while, and I really admire how you show up in the world and what you're doing to help people. It's just comforting to me personally to know that I have a brother just nearby, just who's doing this kind of thing. So it's excellent. And
and it's interesting because, maybe we should start gathering some of the brothers and sisters in the UK. We already started a little bit with ourselves, and for anybody who's watching who's a part of the UK, maybe we should have a chat afterwards. See where you are and see if we can connect up. I mean, I'm going to see one of my really good soul brothers in Redditch tomorrow. It's an hour and a half away, but what's an hour and a half when it comes to meeting and connecting with people? So yeah, who knows?
Absolutely, yeah, spot on. I'm well up for that as well, for connecting more in that way. And it's going to be, I can see different, almost patches of communities spread out across the land. So not just in the UK, it's going to be global, really, where the land is going to become not ruled by some kind of external force or having rules proposed upon us anymore. I can see that happening, where those kind of archaic ways of doing things are going to fall by the wayside in the coming decades. So yeah, good times, exciting times ahead.
Yeah.
So I just want to thank you too. I was in the background just listening to everything that you were saying. And I don't know, Zach, I think you kind of saw me when I was like, wow. Humanity is learning to work from the heart, and they're tuning into this language. And I was speaking with a friend the other day on how important it is to have people present in their lives to teach them how to work with this language, because it is so new. So I am so appreciative of both of you being here today. And sitting back in the background, I was able to tune into your energy. And it is so beautiful and pure, each one of you individually. But as you connect together, I can't tell you how vibrant and bright it is. So I love this journey that you're on. And I love the fact, too, that in your human form, you are male. And you're bringing yourself forward, because we have so many females that are in our line of work. And I really enjoy the fact that you're present and you're bringing yourself forward. We do need more masculine energy to present themselves. So I truly, truly thank you both for being on Soul Traits today and presenting yourselves in such a beautiful way. Such a beautiful way. I do have down below, if you don't mind, if you can let everybody know how they can connect with you. And I do have it posted down there, and also about your groups as well. I'd appreciate it.
James, please take it away.
Oh, appreciate that. I think the easiest way is that I have my Facebook profile, just James Malins. I do have a page, but I mostly post on my profile. So if anyone's interested in, coming and walking with me on that profile and being a part of that, then I'd be very grateful. And my inbox is always open, and if you're interested in having a chat, then feel free to.
Okay, so for me, there is one thing that I would like to shamelessly plug here, and it's called the Foundation for Personal Growth, which is a people-powered personal development system of sorts that is looking to help people, to empower them and to uplift them and just to generally help them. You can find that by going to meetup.com and typing in Foundation for Personal Growth, or going and searching on Facebook for Foundation for Personal Growth. And alternatively, again, you can reach me on my Facebook profile if you want to send me a message or contact me or get in touch. And that is Zach Hayter, ZACH, and that is HAYTER. So thank you very much, and thank you, Michelle, as well, for such a brilliant platform for us to be able to do this on, and to help those who are meant to be helped at this time. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Likewise.
And thank you again for your light and your presence. It's just so beautiful to see. And I just want to thank everybody for tuning in today on Soul Treats. So much gratitude for the growth that you've brought to the page. Also, just for your support as well to others. And tune in. Please go to the page and follow it so that you can see the different lives that will be presented. And I hope to have Zach and James on again, because truly they have so much to teach us all. And thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for being here, and have a great day. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye for now.